urgency and agency. I want to talk about the nature of switching topics mid-sentence. This is what I was told to do today. In the middle of my shower, as I was processing other visions, I was told that the video was now going to be called Urgency and Agency because of where I was and what I was saying in my mind as I was looking out into the unknown of soul and processing the visions of many who come to me on a soul level in their minds without knowing it. And what I have to do is then say, I stand for freedom. And yet, freedom rings true for many on this plane, and yet they don't acknowledge it as such. I have the freedom to be who I want to be, is where most people think they are. True freedom is when you release from the bodies and go into another vision of love. Okay, that's when you can really create a lot of havoc for the minds of many. So this idea that everyone is reigning free here is the idea of religious redemption, because that's what I was working with, to be honest. Okay, so those souls that are saying we're working towards redemption from the chains of slave state that many were freeing themselves from in those times aplenty, right? No. So you see, this isn't about saying that there's something wrong with those who are working in those ideas of, I can't free myself in my mind from those dictates or rules of certain books. We all vibrate in various conditions that stop us from being who we are in many ways. If I follow the rules of the road, I am not free to just go willy-nilly hitting people, right? Or I'm not free in the way in which I can speak. We have limitations aplenty. What freedom is on the soul level is a freedom to create with those who you love and adore. Most often. We come back here to challenge ourselves to that idea that I'm still in the vision of free to choose who I love in my heart, not who dictates to me who I need to be. That's what most are working with. And we're feeling a sense of urgency on the changes afoot. We are feeling the vibration of change very much so on this plane, but in various ways. It is a nuance of soul vision that Brenda works with. I'm not here to tell you how to be. That's the dictatorship that we vibrated out of in one instance when we rose out of the vision of I no longer need to bow before any soul as greater than I. Right? Higher levels of wisdom are beautiful, but it doesn't mean that they are somehow caretaking us as if we were what? Less than? What does that say to ourselves? Do we have those wisdom that we pass on to our children? Correct? But do we say, I'm better than you? Think carefully about what people are telling themselves in various books. This is why we rise in the vision of soul and we unite with our souls and we say, oh yes, we have it all figured out, right? Not even close. I don't deny you your beautiful vision of reverence for others outside of who you are. This is where many will say, I know it's aspects of myself that I'm bringing to me. So there's a respect that we can show everyone, or we can say to ourselves, I need to bow out from this transaction, right? You see, for me, I look to others in various ways, not for who I am, as much as I like to think. There are certain things I hold on to. But in essence, not if someone is saying this is who you are and this is only who you are. Because that doesn't allow us the freedom to create the changes that need to be made in our lives, in our wisdom, and in our guidance. So this is why for me, in some instances, I would say I'm not free and clear of a certain vibration yet that will allow me to freely create with another. Okay? That's where I'm at on the soul level. I'm still dealing with certain relationships on the soul level so that I can free myself from them in order for other souls to come in and to help me create a better future for myself here. How many people want to know what that's like, to know that? And what is it that that process does for us? It helps me unite with those who truly do understand the nature of change when it is not needed. When it's not needed, but when it is desired. There's a big difference. I desire change in my outcome is where most are. Is it needed for transparency's sake? Okay? On a soul level, I love who I am. I hear from those who love who they are too. And what does that do when we don't? It's like we agree to disagree about who we are to be. There are people who say, I disagree with your vision of the future. Right? Others are saying, oh, I can see it coming. Brenda plays out multiple perspectives and points of view. She knows how to do the vision of Seth without even knowing that she knows how to do his wisdom. Because in essence, it's who she is in her mind, right? Not even close. She doesn't deny the strength and wisdom of that soul. But his wisdom in that vision of a particular understanding of how we can create various possibilities for ourselves and pick and see where do we go. He wanted us to project the vision of our parallel realities, to just see how we could become more understanding of the multidimensional universe in which we play out our lives in. Okay? What we're not doing here is telling people that you have to be anything other than who you are in your moment. But that's rather dull, isn't it? You see, we come here looking for the thrills and excitement of living, is what some say. Others are on the thrill of survival. This was what Brenda got told from the soul of Jane, who was also in the vision of Seth is my soul in his own way. Okay, he had his own soul vision, but he brought her into the fold. Okay, so that explains a lot of the wisdom that Brenda foretells. That's the strength of it. She's always been able to predict patterns and influences upon each of our souls. If you have an influence that she knows about, some will say she uses it against them. No, it's a limitation potentially in how you create. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's cut below the belt. So there are souls there who are going to understand. Okay. If I only use Seth vision, I'm going to get one kind of guidance. However, I don't use it anymore because I already could see the power and strength in my own vision. I came into a collision with the Seth soul only in the vision of not liking certain aspects of that prayer vigil that he was performing for many. Others will say he's had lifetimes of experience and therefore knows more. Perfect. That's what people are saying. Go to the source of wisdom. Brenda's source is not just of Seth. She's utilized her own soul to rise into the vision of the love of self and the love of all from various planes. And when you bring your soul on board, who has the access and denies the beauty of what love of all really is, it's still not known here on this plane for the most part. Okay, by Brenda especially. She still has her own issues with certain souls, and that's why she creates those visions of division in her mind sometimes saying, stop, I don't want to hear from you anymore. Do you know how many people are like protecting themselves for good reason is what some would say, Brenda says, what's your issue with me, and let's unwind it, or let's figure it out. You see, that's the nature of acceptance, but she doesn't accept those who don't accept her. That's when the disparity happens. And she says, I actually accept it. What I don't do is I don't listen to your complaints about who I am. Right? You're free to go. This is her beauty. I love you. I set you free from any obligation that you think you may have to create with me. How about that for a good one? Right? Or if we're in the nature of reconciliation and there's this idea of, I need to come together with you so we can vibrate in the beauty of who we are. And Brenda will say, yes, but I still have my life to live. I want my freedom from your vision, because we don't create the same visions anymore. And in that vision, they'll say, oh, that's a bad thing. And it's like, no, I just don't have the same vision. This is why souls uniting on visions rather than prayers is a big deal. Brenda isn't one to negate the prayer vision. She's just, what are we praying for? And when others are saying, we're coming into the vision of those souls here who are lifting themselves up here to reunite with their own souls. This is the big difference in the wisdom that's been passed down for generations versus I am all that there is and all that I need. Okay, this is the strength and beauty and wisdom of all of us. And when we rise into the vision of now I'm creating with a collective vision, that's where Brenda shines her light. Others will say it's a lifetime development that she's gone through. She understands it from one or two perspectives. Others will say it's the strength of those perspectives that matters. Okay, I'm not here to tell people how to be, but there is that sense of I have the urgency to make decisions for myself. Brenda's very patient in her strengths and abilities to develop over time. I'm not here to wipe the floor clean of all the bodies that are dropping at my feet once they cross over from other planes. Okay? I have to deal with some of those visions where they say my message needs to get out because I was the best of the best when I was on this plane in my mind. Okay? That vision of visionary means Brenda has put forth the vision of what Seth said in the vision of the Christ soul and the vision that it is not end of days. And if you cheer that one on, good for you. If you have a problem with it, you need to think about, why would I want to cause destruction on this plane for future generations? Brenda's about taking away the stuff that came through from various channels, quote, prophets, disciples, that served their vision in the moment and did it at a beautiful pace. We're not in a hurry to end these visions of love for ourselves and our families that are coming through in generations, because she hears from her great-grandchildren at this point. That's how strong that vision is. We know we have the vision of love. We know moving forward how to get ourselves where we want to be. We love ourselves along the way. We open up the nature of deception, is what others will say. They will say, no one came forward with any visions of future generations, right? That is not true if you know how to handle the information without attaching any conditioning to it. They may be whoever they are. I love all. That's what our souls, our highest visions do for us. They bring us our source of wisdom from who we are, and we allow ourselves to vibrate in the beauty of it, and then we can see the beauty of what that means. It doesn't mean I am attaching to one plane in essence, but this is the nature of where Brenda, as her soul is. This is my my soul's vision for my future on this plane, this beautiful plane of development. And so those other planes that others are working with are often very distinguished in their vibration. And Brenda's saying, but that's the thing. I'm holding ourselves in a very high vibration here, so I can see the world as a beautiful place for generations to come. Not for people to try to create havoc where it's not needed. Okay? So it's not about condemning anyone's soul or any one vision. But when people have a collective vision that is creating havoc for everybody, we celebrate the vision being destroyed, correct? This is why Brenda was celebrating much of what she was receiving in the vision that those souls' visions of the devil, perhaps, vibrate out within the next couple of decades. It's the few decades where it's mostly on a subconscious level, because most people aren't really projecting that out for the most part. Most people are going about their day. And with what's coming, in essence, we are starting to educate and see the younger generations. They're already out of it for the most part. It's just what gets put on them here. So they didn't need to come in with that fear of the unknown. Okay, so that's why we're journeying into the unknown with Brenda. And that sense of urgency and agency was for her to get going as well. Because in essence, they want her to rise out of the vision of victim where she was in one moment and say, I love you for who you are. You're showing me more about who I am. That's who she is. It lets me know where I can create freely, right? Versus, am I going to be in a state of conflict with certain souls always, who aren't open to other perspectives other than what they've been told in one or two books, potentially? Or maybe their experiences with their families are showing them the beauty. This is the nature. I was getting told I descend from souls of prayer and various conditioning. And then I took that off and I said, I don't need that. I'm already sensing my own soul's vision. As a child, I had access to it. I didn't need others planting seeds of destruction, despair, or fear in my mind. It was already there as a child already within the confines of my own family. And then when I broke free of that vision, my own soul started to come to me in various ways, outside sources of love as well. And I said bravely, I challenge you to scare me away from who I am. That's where I go with most souls. Because they would say their terror vision and say, but this is what I experienced, understanding that that was what was planted for them, potentially by their own souls, if they continue to reinforce that vision that it was theirs versus their parents, versus their grandparents. This is why we move the wheel of time forward to a place of love where it's not about death and destruction. That many people are seeing these in these shows. These dystopian futures are ridiculous for the most part, because most people aren't watching them on this plane, to be honest. This is an American ideal in many ways. We like to see the destruction of the planet into the outer realms of discovery. We create a lot of this within the vision of Jesus as our Savior as well. Brenda hears from that soul's vision, and she looks at it in discovery and in awe in some ways. But she says, what makes you think you have more information at your disposal about who I am than my own soul? He doesn't give her vision here. That's the difference. Is I'm not worried about when I cross over. I'm already vibrating in a higher vision of love for who I am and for who others are in their moments. I have my issues. I'm honest always. Okay, it's why I see certain things and I say that's not the way to go. This is the destructive nature of what many don't understand, is I don't have to deeply divide the visions of religion. They've done that for themselves already. That's what happens, is there's a unifying of all souls at some point, And that's actually what we have to look forward to. It will be painful for those who have identified with their own vision as superior than others on this plane. So if you feel like your book is superior than another book, perhaps it may be for you, but it doesn't mean you go to war over a book. Or 2. Or 5. And that's the nature of why we came on in this vision, was to show people when we ride that rail of love for ourselves, it's like others can't touch us. They can try, but they know in the inside that they themselves would want to show the strength, wisdom, dignity, and honor to tell the truth, versus I'm people-pleasing everyone who happens to think that their vision is better for me than they themselves even know what could have been for them had they not utilized that vision. These are the realms of discovery on a soul level. That's why Brenda gets certain phrases brought to her. Love yourself dearly, my child, is what that soul would say. And Brenda was thinking about it and going, that's very nice if I actually needed to feel like I didn't love myself. Or if I didn't feel like I wasn't already in the wisdom of the moment. Or if I didn't feel like I was already cherished and adored by my family, whether or not I perceive it to be on this plane or not. It's already known. Whether or not they agree with me is a whole different scenario. Okay? And so that's why, in my mind, I let people be. I may not come into your presence very often. You won't see me very often with certain souls if I feel there's a big disconnect. I can connect with just about anybody, but if I'm in the interest of I want to enjoy my experience on this plane, who am I going to create with? Think carefully where Brenda goes. I would rather be alone than sit in a room of strangers trying to convince people that there is something better for them around the bend. Do you know how many people just don't even want to hear that? They want to hear the end of the story for their souls. So they keep creating the end points for their souls, rather than the beauty of transition into the love of who we are. And what that means is we grant that to others, whether or not they feel good or not. Look at that soul doing what that soul does. Why? It's another perspective, perhaps, that I haven't enjoyed as of yet. Right? We're not here to enjoy every single perspective that comes across our screen. It's a very different understanding of those souls who have crossed themselves over versus those who are saying, I didn't have a choice in doing it. Okay? They have taken off the anger, discrimination, violence, the attributes that most people would say were the negative. They say it was an aspect of who I am as soul. I love myself dearly for everything that I ever created. That's the nature of where we are as souls. We don't deny our lives, their beauty, in whatever way, shape, or form they play out. What we want here are better outcomes, for the most part, or a more enjoyable journey. See, Brenda's not as worried about the outcome. She's like, I just want to enjoy my journey a little bit better sometimes. And sometimes that means just reading a good book. That's how simple it can be for her. I could be hearing about the murders that are, taking their dues on various planes for what they had to do here, right? They had to. Why? How many say, I did for the benefit of my country? But in essence, that's a choice that was made very long ago for her family tree. Were of the strength and dignity of the military, perhaps, or the law enforcement souls. They're not demeaned on a soul level. Okay, those arrangements are made ahead of time. 9 out of 10 on the Richter scale for Escondido is what she would be told for those who deny the vision that it has to happen. This is not the same about it has. There are always choices in each moment about what can happen. But if it plays out on the news, it's often very much predetermined in the wheels of time. Who's doing what, when, who's serving on what post, who's doing the vision of this time, it's my time on deck, right? This is who's having those home runs in the second or third inning at the third, that's how strong Brenda can go with her soul. I know who's hitting what run on what, baseball team to create a vision of, journeying into the sports fields, for instance. It's an enjoyable thing for me. Okay. That's why sometimes I was in the doldrums of soul with families who are just like vibrating in the news so much. And it doesn't mean that they were there always. But in essence, it was, this isn't the vision for our future. And if you want to follow me to a place where we go, where I can say that's a beautiful joint venture we're creating, that's when you know you're with the right souls, right? We can tally our wins and losses. We can volley back and forth. But it doesn't mean that you're discounted in whatever vision you're putting forth. So this is why some souls are saying, I like someone who makes me feel good about myself without telling me there's something wrong with who I am. That's not what Brenda specializes in. She's about helping you enjoy your journey more if there is something to be said from your soul. Some people do not come through for Brenda because they know they're already in a great place. That's a beautiful thing. Others are saying, I love who I am dearly and I'm still here because I like vibrating in the beauty of who we are. We have the same kind of energy. We love ourselves, but we don't deny the beauty of who we are as souls here on this plane, which has its own moments of reflection, rejection, and pain sometimes. Okay? And that's the nature of it, is to allow for the beauty of our lives in whatever ways they play out and move forward from it without vibrating in the victimhood of our country, perhaps, which is adjusting its energy as appropriately as it can. Versus the other visions where we're united and we're bonded together when we go with the nature of the collective. This is the nature of the collective vision. We are bonded all together in unity with all souls. Now, what that means is we're not denying them the beauty of wisdom and the amazing vibrations and whatnot that people are experiencing and creating and enjoying on any plane that they are able to rise up into or find themselves in. But it can be a better experience of who we are if we denied those entrants, right, into our hearts. It's what most of us do. Brenda's had to sit there and deny a certain soul who she loves dearly entrance into her vision because his soul will not get over her vision of I love who I am no matter what I say or think about myself or another. That's where we all are. But when she got told, I have an archangel coming into your expression because of what you sent out to another soul, and they themselves came back and said, I have to quote, protect you, right? No, it's a wisdom that she's being offered, not protection. She's not afraid of any soul. She's had her fear moments. That's the journey into the unknown. What level of love am I vibrating in? The That's where you sometimes have to go. That's why we would say, turn off the TVs from those death and destruction videos, right? Brenda knows how to handle all of them. I go, oh, I can see what's being planted for all of us if people are starting to take that as the truth coming. This is why so many are like, science fiction predicts everything. I want you to think very carefully about where we go with so many science fiction shows of the past. Did they all come true? Absolutely not. Why would we want to create that in the first place? Are we going to leave it up to them to create the beauty? This is why there's a bonding. We're not demeaning their visions. We just say, why would we want to reinforce that? Let's remember to look at the beautiful views of love that we see on the TV screen. Those are all beautiful visions of love no matter what. We're not demeaning people. We're not telling people what to watch, what to listen to, or whatnot. Brenda listens to rap music sometimes. She listens to Metallica, and she says, I am loving who they are. They grew into their wisdom as I did, watching their documentary. I can appreciate the level of vibration in essence by not caring about what someone says is bad or good for me based on the vision of, I love the energy level of it versus the words that might be a little strong sometimes. But by golly, why would I look at anything else in this world and say, I can see it for what it is? I don't have to sit there and say that it's somehow who I am. It's aspects of who I am, but who cares? I know how to rise in every vision. So if I feel like I'm, quote, a devil vision from someone else's projection, I would be like, well, that's a concept from time ago. There's no actuality that anyone is really, truly creating with it. Those are aspects of who we are, just as that original was creating from a pain point. That's what Brenda got told. It's a pain point projection onto the whole of humanity. Now, if you want to know what pain points are, we can talk about that at another time. Okay, but this is that idea of pain points and projections. Okay, so when people think about their wisdom, they might want to think about the nature of, what is this doing for me? Is it causing me fear? Is it giving me wisdom? There's a difference between wisdom and the truth and the vision of the future coming back to us. Okay? And so that's why all of us guide each other. All of us are beautiful, and all of us are wise in our own ways, whether or not we want to admit that or not. Dear children have so much strength. Brenda looks to children's books as some of the wisest sources of wisdom for the simplicity, honesty, and strength in understanding that even though we grow up, quote, we often carry a lot of those hearts with us as wounding from our childhood and are reacting and creating more from that. And then we say, what did I do as a child that helped me to love who I was? I was surrounded by loving people is my first line of defense, is what most would say, right? I knew always. There was an inner beauty and strength in me that knew that I was loved and cared for. And this is why we want people to think about the children of the world and where they are in their minds, and why are we creating such dire circumstances for their hearts. Okay, we as adults are responsible for the next generation, and we keep planting that seed. They don't have the same conditioning, so we don't have to overprotect their vision from religion. We just say they will find out within time that they themselves are of it in essence, or not. Okay, and the same could be said for spirituality or any other like large collective vision. It would be a tribal vision, but it's part of the collective, and so we have to honor all of it. It's just about whether or not people are finding themselves in those death throes with their system, or if they're escaping from the reality of this plane. Okay, others will say that this is an escape hatch. That's religion for you, because it's I'm going to put things off until I go to the next level. Okay, and that's my safety net when I cross over. Okay? It's not bad. Others will say spirituality has its bypassing moments. We're going to bypass the pain points here. We don't have to create with them. And that's what a lot of the older psychological stuff has to deal with, is that idea that some of us do need to process some of our wounds. Others need us to free ourselves from them. And that's where the majority of the people do indeed go with the strength and wisdom of counselors and whatnot. It's like, I'm not trying to recreate anything. I'm trying to process it out of my system. This could be the nature of energy work or your soul vision. But for most of us who've already arrived on this vision, as I've already combined with my soul, I listen to who I am and then I move forward. I try not to create those situations that bring the past back to me unless it's absolutely needed. I'm not telling people not to stay in the victimhood of who they are if they feel it is an empowering vision. It actually creates destruction for a lot of others, because a lot of others are saying, I'm uniting in victimhood when I don't really need to anymore. But it gives me a sense of community. Okay, so we're not going to deny anything, but you need to ask yourself, am I rising out of the victimhood? This is why people then start to leave those groups. I don't want to keep talking about this. It doesn't feel right anymore for me. This is where Brenda goes. I didn't fit into a lot of the groups because they kept planting seeds of fear, and you're going to create a victim for me because someone else on the other side of the veil or whatever, what you run into is going to be bad or evil or whatnot. I don't buy into it. I don't create with that idea. I've had my experiences of it because even some shows will start to kind of vibrate in the beauty of my mind. And so when she does it, the people will say that's disruptive. You don't want to create that for people going through this process. And that's why this idea that we need to be scared of others, it's more like, let's love ourselves through the process of pain and rejection. That's what we do. I love who I am. I set you free from me. That's where I go. I set you free from me. I don't need you to bow down and pray for me. I don't need you to look at me in any way that is better than you. I honor your vision, right? But I've gone through this process enough for my whole life to see and feel and experience those ideas that are either limiting for who I am to be, or those that try to make me less than who I can be, or those that try to place fears and imaginative discoveries on my soul. The fears, imaginative discoveries. These are what I can come into sometimes when I go journey into the unknown. And then I have to feel my way through the vibration of it, and then I rise out of it. That's the nature of the love of who we are. Imaginative discoveries are another way of, it's like religious aspiration has a lot of that in it. So it's not bad, right? The beauty of the wisdom that comes through with that. Most people will think this is an anti-something. Brenda's like, I'm pro-soul. And so when I go through the process of soul, this is why I understand people are rising in their vision of religious aspiration or religious inspiration. And I grant you that vision is beautiful for you. But if you are denying the vision of, I'm creating from a place that says that there's something to be afraid of, which are aspects of who I am, what does that tell you? Okay. So with that, I want to say thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe or like if you want to be notified about future videos. And I also want to remind people, as my soul told me, stay curious, wise, and soulful. Have a great day.